Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic Rush Adventure for the Nintendo DS. So last time we essentially did manage to do some more sailing by not only trying to find 6 remaining locations for Johnny Races, but also we somehow collected 6 Chaos Emeralds. So this means we finally gathered all 7 Chaos Emeralds in this whole entire playthrough. So what I will admit though right away is that Chaos Emerald 6 did actually give me some bit of trouble. Although, unlike the other Chaos Emeralds though, it honestly did took me about one attempt when it comes to likely for, you know, certain Chaos Emeralds as far as claiming them. So either way, today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on, and straight to the point, we can now able to actually start to be collecting all 7 Soul Emeralds. So how do we get them exactly? Well, we need to talk to Marine right here after asking Gordon, the NPC character somewhere in Ocean Tornado building, and as a result we can able to actually access to 7 missions that it says gets all Soul Emeralds. So some Soul Emeralds can be obtained by not only completing certain stages, specifically Hidden Island stages, but it's also about the fact that we're only going to be able to be focusing on 4 bosses in particular when it comes to certain missions. So, and as far as other missions are concerned, that the reason why about the fact that I'm only just somehow realized about the fact that, well, when it comes to the forms, there's a bunch of question marks that you might see in Journey forms within the item selection menu. That's just clearly because there is technically yet another collectible you can get, and that's what appears to be the medals, which, as a result, no matter what though, what these medals can do, that obviously though, if you're trying to complete the time attack based missions, obviously though, you can able to actually get yourselves these medals by Marine, the raccoon. So, yeah, that's as far as I can try to able to explain about that. Although, unfortunately though, for us though, I don't think it's possible we can able to actually go through this process though, because I'm basically now onto the forms of collecting all 7 Soul Emeralds. So this means about the fact that, as I said before, not only do we have to face off against with 4 bosses in Journey forms this whole process, but also about the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, we need to tackle for 3 Hidden Islands. So as a result, one of them is actually going to be Hidden Island 6, and the other one is Hidden Island 8, and then the other one is Hidden Island 12. So, relatively speaking though, it all just gives us a bit of a challenging process when it comes to going for those Hidden Islands. Well, the only time exception to this, however, though, is about the fact that when it comes to Hidden Island 6, that is going to be the easiest of the bunch. But aside from all that stuff, though, is about the fact that, well, if you couldn't tell already, that the boss fights themselves are going to get a lot more tougher this time around. So this means about the fact that, well, whatever I managed to realize about something is about the fact that Daffy Duck told me that when he first encountering these Soul Emerald missions, that my goodness, the last one he did actually give him a lot of troublesome back in the day, since in Journey forms of, let's just say, in sometime in 2009 or something, and as a result, no matter what though, he still couldn't beat it until sometime in 2010, just before Sonic Colors on the DS is on the horizon or something like that. So, and you see why when I'm talking about until whenever we get onto the final Soul Emeralds we can able to accumulate. So, anyways though, in terms of bosses we're going to able to have a rematch against with, in terms of this whole entire process, and that's what appears to be Ghost Pendulum right here, alongside with the forms of Ghost Kraken, as well as Johnny and Captain Whisker, and of course Ghost Titan. So no matter what though, I would say it's about the fact that Ghost Titan is going to be extremely challenging and difficult when it comes to the forms of this whole entire mission structure. So either way, once you complete the actual mission, then obviously though, the Soul Emerald is now yours to keep. So, and as a result, we've somehow got 1 Soul Emerald so far, and naturally we've got 6 more to go. So relatively speaking though, thankfully though, just like in Sonic Rush, getting these Soul Emeralds is very self-explanatory, no special stages required, so at the very least though, it's simple and straightforward. So anyways, let's move on to the next Soul Emerald mission, and as I said before, we're going into one of those Hidden Island levels. So because of this, I think this is Hidden Island 6, as far as I can usually tell for this point. Oh, and speaking of which though, it's about the fact that I totally apologize for the forms of the not only 1, but 2 videos ever since about a week ago. I accidentally did say 9 hidden levels, well actually as a result I did somehow realize we did somehow encounter 10 hidden islands instead of 9 hidden islands. Maybe because I keep on thinking about something else, likely for instance about the forms of, well let's just say The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, where it comes to encountering certain secrets, where it comes to able to actually sailing through different islands that you can able to actually like get certain items and stuff like that. Maybe I keep thinking about that game more so than this is, but regardless of everything else though, I do apologize for this point folks, especially because concerning for the fact that I managed to somehow realize about the fact that the actual weather condition for this right now is actually going to get a lot hotter as far as I can usually expect. Although, suffice to say, it's actually a lot better than the forms of how it does on the past few days recently, because my goodness, the previous few days, as a result, it's been washed out during the forms of our weather forecast in the past few days. So, at the very least though, that the weather conditions are a little bit slightly better, well, nothing extremely better though just yet, aside from the fact that we might able to come across into a heat wave at one point, so that's besides the point. So, and as far as I can definitely tell right from the start, that when it comes to this whole entire process, when it comes to getting certain soul emeralds, this might actually be the final time we can able to do some bit of platforming, which as a result, once we're done with the forms of the majority of the platforming stages, well, the majority of the forms of the final stretch of this whole entire playthrough, as far as I'm concerned, we're only going to be faced off against with the entire boss battles. So, as a result, yeah, it's going to be, quite fun as far as this is concerned, despite the fact I just keep on getting myself own it most of the time, especially like I said before, certain boss fights is going to get extremely difficult when it comes to the forms of certain missions as far as I'm aware. I suppose the only boss you might not encounter when it comes to the forms of getting the Soul Emeralds departments, which there are Ghost Rex, as well as Ghost Pirate, Ghost Whale, as well as this Ghost, I can't really tell what's the actual, the boss fight's name was actually called in Sky Babylon, because I don't exactly know too much of Sky Babylon as much, because as far as I'm aware, that particular zone in particular is really difficult and very frustrating as well. Sometimes, especially because of the phones that's very finicky, guiding the balloon segments, which as a result, it does kind of reminds me like a similar situation as in Sonic Generations when you play as Classic Sonic in one of those specific challenge acts. That's basically though you have to force able to actually ride on this particular balloon in order to able to actually continue your progress on that particular challenge act in Journey Forms within Rooftop Run in Classic Sonic. So you probably already know what I'm talking about right here. So anyway though, so there's some bunch of news I would like to discuss upon actually, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, first off, today's date of course there is the 22nd of July today, in some cases in 2024 today, so as far as I'm aware, that what I've heard from Coco Bandicoot, that she did somehow mention about this ever since in WarioWare Move It, that she did somehow mention that there is technically not 1, not 2, but 5 Pokemon anime movies has already celebrated its anniversaries just recently, and those are Pokemon the Movie 2000, or in some cases Pokemon the Movie The Power of One in a Japanese version, alongside with Pokemon Destiny Deoxys, and in some cases those my least favorite Pokemon movies I've ever seen still. Alongside with that, there is also Pokemon the Movie 12, which is of course Arceus and the Jewel of Life. And there's also Pokemon the Movie 14, Deontay and the Cocoon of Destruction, and finally Pokemon the Movie 22, in some cases a remake of the first Pokemon movie, or simply known as Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. So, as far as I'm aware, happy 25th anniversary of the film's release of Pokemon the Movie 2, The Power of One, which it did originally came out in, let's just say in 1999 in Japan, whilst we didn't receive the film until a year later in 2000, because as far as I'm aware, the English version did somehow call it Pokemon the Movie 2000, but we still managed able to get ourselves with the forms of not only The Power of One, but also with the Pikachu shorts, which is of course Pikachu's Rescue Adventure, which while looking back on it though, I found it was a really dang good time, especially concerning for the fact that we still managed able to get ourselves our DVD copy of the film, especially concerning for the fact that, well, I do think that Daffy Duck did tell me about this as well, that in one time when we when he did somehow manage able to went to see Pokemon the Movie 2000 at first, and during the informs on the DVD version, that for whatever reason his progression for watching it just seems to kind of stopped, especially because concerning for that particular disc is actually gone way worse condition, at least as far as I've heard about it anyway. So anyways though, and in addition to that though, I still really love the forms of Lugia to be in the main focus, as well as the forms of the legendary birds for the likes of, well, Moltres, Zapdos, and Octocuna. So, you probably get the idea about that. I apologize for that mispronunciation of certain Pokemon names, but that's just mainly because it has been a very long while since I actually mentioned something related to Pokemon. So, anyways though, and meanwhile, happy 20th anniversary of the film's release of Pokemon the Movie 7, Destiny Deoxys, or should I say, unhappy 20th anniversary in my opinion, especially like I said before, Pokemon the Movie 7, Destiny Deoxys is still my least favorite Pokemon movies I've ever seen, especially because I just, well, don't get me wrong, I enjoy some aspects. I think the actual Deoxys and Rayquaza was easily the best thing about it. Some parts are pretty cool too, when I think about it. But I seemed able to struggle laughing. But the main driving force behind the film, while during this whole main selling point by the forms of Tori himself, I just can't stand. Personally, I found him way too cringeworthy, especially concerning for the fact it's almost like a kid version of Riku from Kingdom Hearts. Now I know for the fact that the producers wants to make him as a cooler addition to the Pokemon franchise, but for me, I never saw it. I just cannot stand his voice. It goes like voice, and because of that, I don't usually enjoy many of the scenes with him as the main focus. So, that's just me anyway though. I do know for the fact that a lot of people do have their own opinions, and sure enough though, understandable. So, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. And there was also happy 15th anniversary of Pokemon the Movie 12, Arceus, and the Jewel of Life, which, while looking back on it though, it was alright. I mean, most people seem to point this out, is that the main villain, called Marcus, he's just Jafar, but in the forms of in a Pokemon anime form, especially concerning for the fact that his behavior is just, well, this might be feels a bit of a bleaker villain, from what I've noticed, and he's just evil. I mean, not in a fun way, unlike the forms of how it does it for Phantom from the likes of Pokemon, Ranger, and the Temple of the Sea in my eyes, but it's also about the fact that, like I said before, that Marcus is basically Jafar, which, as a result, I have no idea why I somehow bring this up, especially because I've noticed about the fact that some YouTubers out there has already did manage to point things out, since in during the films of this whole entire retrospective, when it comes to rewatching the whole bunch of Pokemon movies just before the next one is gonna happen. So, that's as far as I can try to able to describe about it. But anyways, and alongside with that, happy 10th anniversary of the film's release of Pokemon the Movie 14, in some cases the first ever Pokemon movie that is based off from X and Y series, and that's what appears to be Deontay and the Cocoon of Destruction. And while looking back on it though, I thought it was pretty good, especially I love the introduction to Deontay, which that's probably is the reason why that she did somehow manage to able to join in into our channel ever since in our 13th anniversary special celebration for the Maxi Toys department, which you probably already know about that. And finally, of course, happy 5th anniversary of the film's release of Pokemon the Movie 22, or should I say Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. And while looking back on it though, I just think I kind of prefer the original one a bit more, mainly because of my nostalgia factor, and on top of that, I'm pretty much still more accustomed to the original version of the Mewtwo Strikes Back movie, because not only because of how the fact that, like I said before, not only because of my nostalgia factor, but it's also about the fact that, I will admit it though right away, the 3D CGI remake looks a bit too jarring in my opinion, especially concerning for the fact that, well, mind you about the fact it has been about a very long while since I actually have last watched any of those Pokemon movies since Detective Pikachu, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously that was about the fact that, well, me and Mighty and Sonic always attempt to watch that on Netflix somewhere, but either way though, I suppose beggars can't be choosers. So anyway, so let's move on now to the final Soul Emerald mission, and that's what appears to be takes place in the Big Swell, and as a result, this is by far the hardest Soul Emerald mission in the whole game. Plus it's clear because no matter what though, it's about the fact that, well, Ghost Titan has more attacks, and on top of all that stuff though is that the damage output for the cannon turrets is actually going to get a lot more stronger. In addition to that, the aiming reticle, well, it starts a little bit simple at the beginning, but eventually later on though, it gets ridiculously chaotically fast, especially because, as I mentioned this before, certain boss battles in these kinds of missions can get a lot tougher. So because of that though, yeah, we are able to just be, well, thankfully we don't have to rush this or anything else like that, and I follow you, you might able to recommend do not pick up any of those rings, or specifically, all of those rings entirely, because if you accidentally obtain all of those rings in the entire battle, well, you are seriously gonna get screwed no matter what. So, anyways though, there's also another thing I want to explain about this, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, it looks like we did somehow receive yet another trailer for Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, except this time, it's gonna be most likely focuses on stages department, and looking at the forms of the comparison between the original counterparts compared to the forms of right now. Like, for instance, they've shown us the forms of some more gameplay footage, not just by the forms of Final Rush or Space Colony Arc level. In addition to that, there's also Rail Canyon and Bullet Station, and finally Kingdom Valley. And while looking at the actual specific comparisons between the original versions compared to right now, my goodness, it looks super duper gorgeous this time around. Mainly with the forms of Rail Canyon and Bullet Station, alongside with the forms of Kingdom Valley as well, because, well, suffice to say, they did match the actual source material ever since enduring the forms within the original counterparts of those specific stages. So, yeah, that seems pretty cool. And by the way, I love the fact that they've now included new remixes for all of the stages, ranging from Final Rush, Rail Canyon / Bullet Station, and of course Kingdom Valley. So, pretty cool about the fact that we can now able to actually listen to not only the original version of Kingdom Valley's music in Sonic Generations, but now we can able to listen to the remix counterpart of that specific music in Shadow Generations game. So yeah, that's actually pretty fantastic in my eyes. So yeah, pretty cool stuff as far as this is concerned. So anyway, let's just, oh jeez, you see what I mean? That particular aiming reticle gets insanely fast, and soon if you get into the final stretch of this particular battle. So, but thankfully though, it actually took me about 1 attempt, which is very surprising, considering for the fact that unlike Daffy Duck, back in the day that is, when he first encountered this boss in this mission, that he did manage to able to actually took him for about 100 tries, mainly because of this frustrating aiming reticle, as well as too many attacks that he has to go through. So, there we go folks, Big Swell is completely done again, except this time we've somehow claimed ourselves the 7th and the final Soul Emerald. So this means all these Soul Emeralds have now been collected. So, pretty cool and pretty fascinating as well. So that way we can now able to move on to the final point of the game. So this means we're now able to actually access to the extra zone, which is Deep Core. I wonder what that's all about, I wonder. So I suppose the final thing I want to mention about is about the fact that yes indeed, that PlayStation has mentioned the 30th anniversary of Tekken. So yeah, it's been 3 decades ago since Tekken did somehow first came out in the arcade machines back in 1994, which is, you know, very impressive though, although I still haven't exactly got myself the forms of any other Tekken games in my whole entire life. I mean, I definitely heard about it, thanks to the forms of, you know, Kaiusa, who was actually introduced in, well, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as part of DLC character number 10 or 11, I can't exactly for sure, especially concerning for the fact it has been a very long while since I actually have last played Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, you see, because obviously I've already 100% everything in that game. So, anyways though, with that being said folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. So join us next time for more Let's Play of Sonic Rush Adventure. Is that I think once we leave this menu, it'll pretty much lead us to the finale in this whole entire game, and this means we can now get into the extra zone, known known as Deep Core to see what the actual fuss is all about. So yeah, this will be interesting. So I'll see you guys until on Wednesday.